We learn that people slip, it's only human. Errors show the path to grow and we're improving. Context shapes the way we do our best work. Focus on the system, no blame can hold us back. 5 hot principles lifting us higher. Learning without blame, fueling our fire. Together we grow, together we thrive. Keeping operational excellence alive.
Welcome to Season 7 and the 142nd episode of the podcast show, Hop into Action. I am your host, Brent Sutton from Learning Teams Inc. I'm in the final editing stages of the Volume 7 book in the Hop Beginner's Guide series. Volume 7 is titled, Ask Better Questions or Seek Better Stories. In the book, I explore how storytelling has always been part of how people across many different cultures have communicated about risk and understood work. Yet how does storytelling get replaced by systems devoid of context? Here is part of that book, which explores the topic when safety systems became weaponized. Organizations often say they are learning every day. They point to the things that surround work, such as pre-starts, risk assessments, permits, procedures, observations, inspections, audits, handovers, debriefs, and end-of-shift reviews. The system looks active, paperwork moves, conversations happen, and the records exist. But when you look closer, these tools often no longer help the organization learn from everyday work. They help the organization demonstrate that the work matched expectations. And this is where weaponization began. Weaponization does not mean someone deliberately set out to harm workers with a form, checklist, or audit. It means a tool originally intended to understand, support, or improve work is repurposed to assess, control, or judge people. The conversation becomes evidence, the guide becomes a rule, and a learning prompt becomes a compliance check. Before work, this often starts with planning, such as pre-starts, toolbox talks, take fives, JSAs, swims, risk assessments, permits, and procedures were originally meant to help people pause, think, coordinate, and anticipate what might be hard, risky, different, or changing before the job began. Their original intent was useful, bring people together, make risk visible, share experience, and create a common picture of the task. Yet over time, pre-work learning often becomes pre-work proof. The pre-start becomes a ritual with the same known risks repeated and attendance is recorded. The take 5 is completed because the system requires it, or the permit becomes a gate to pass through, and the risk assessment becomes a record that says the hazards were known and the controls were understood. The question quietly changes from, what do we need to understand before we start? To, have we done what we need to complete before we start? And once that happens, the tool begins to define the work before the work has even had a chance to reveal itself.
We are taking a break from the podcast for this message. Forget heavy theory. The Hop Beginner's Guide series is written by practitioners. They are short, practical books you can actually use. Each guide is a value-packed read filled with stories, tools, and insights from global hop leaders like Todd Conklin, Brent Sutton, Jeffrey Lith, Brent Robinson, and others. Designed for busy people, they give you the essentials fast and the confidence to put hop into practice right away. Small books, big lessons. Grab the Hop Beginner's Guide series on Amazon and start your journey to doing safety differently today. And now, back to the podcast.
During work, the same drift continues with observations, supervisor walkarounds, field inspections, permit checks, behavioral observations, control verifications, and audit checks, which were meant to bring leaders closer to real work. Their original value was to see how the job was actually unfolding, what had changed, where the plan was weak, and what people were having to do to make the work succeed. But often this during work learning often becomes during work surveillance. The observation checklist asks whether the worker is doing the job correctly, the inspection looks for gaps, the supervisor records visible compliance, and the audit sample confirms whether the system is being followed. Again, the question changes from what is actually happening here to is this being done the right way? And when people feel that shift, work becomes performed, as in workers show the clean version, the expected version, and the version that will survive the checklist. The real work of the trade-offs, small adjustments, local knowledge, frustrations, shortcuts, pressures, and practical problem-solving moves out of view. After work, the drift continues again, even when nothing bad has happened, with systems such as end-of-shift reviews, handovers, post-job debriefs, lessons learned, after-action reviews, quality reviews, and daily production reviews were intended to help teams reflect on what actually happened. What worked, what was lacking, what changed, what surprised people, what needed adjustment, and what should be carried forward. But after-work learning often becomes after-work reporting. The handover becomes a transfer of required information. The debrief becomes a quick closeout. The lessons learned become a summary. The review becomes a record that the job was completed, the controls held, and any issues were captured. The question changes from, what did the work teach us, to, what do we need to record now that the work is done? So the story of work gets shortened, the messy parts get cleaned up, the weak signals disappear because they do not look significant enough to record. Across all three moments, before work, during work, and after work, the same pattern repeats with, the tool begins with learning. Then the organization needs consistency, so it standardizes the tool. It needs evidence, so it documents the tool. It needs accountability, so it measures the tool. It needs defensibility, so it formalizes the tool. And eventually, the tool stops helping people describe work and starts judging whether work matched the system's expectations. That is the weaponization of safety learning. Not one big failure, simply slow drift to, before work, people prove they are ready. During work, people prove they are compliant. After work, people prove the job was closed out properly. Meanwhile, the real learning sits in the spaces between those moments, such as what was difficult before the job began but not said aloud, what changed during the job but was managed quietly, what people learned after the job but never wrote down. That is where operational learning often disappears, not because the organization stopped caring about safety, but because the tools that were meant to help it understand work became tools for proving, checking, and defending the imagined version of work. In closing, if you want to really learn from everyday work, have a system that is designed for hearing the stories of everyday work and how the context of those stories help the workers learn, the work team learn, and the organization learn and meet their compliance obligations, and not the other way around. Otherwise, the road to weaponization starts. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey with Hop into Action. I've loved sharing stories, ideas, and practical ways to do safety differently with you. Your support and curiosity are what make this community so strong, and I want to thank you for being part of it. If you're ready to keep building capability, capacity, and resilience, I'd encourage you to check out the Hop Beginner's Guide series on Amazon. Each volume is short, practical, and packed with insights, and the book series is designed for busy people who want real impact, not theory. This isn't the end of the conversation, just the next step in your journey. So thank you again for listening, for learning, for supporting better work. Until next time, remember, small changes, shared stories, and thoughtful practice lead to big results with HOP, learning teams, and the 4Ds.